This is a pre-show sound check. If you can hear the sound of my amazing voice, sound off with a yeah! You can see the beautiful city from one side of the boat and the open sea on the other. I don't know about you, but that wild blue horizon calls to me sometimes. But I can't go. There's too much action and excitement right here at home. The final countdown has begun. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is proudly reporting for Grapital City's ABS. This is going to be a day to remember. It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. You can see the beautiful city from one side of the boat and the open sea on the other. I don't know about you, but that wild blue horizon calls to me sometimes. But I can't go. There's too much action and excitement right here at home. Let's meet the people who built this city.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to our last developer stream. Really quick, thank you to Atsuover for your amazing tribute remix. I listen to it every day. It's basically my favorite song right now. Thank you, community, for all that awesome, amazing fan art. The dev team loves seeing it, and we look at it and check out the fan art channel every day. As a reminder for the folks who may have not seen the announcement, our Discord is closing tomorrow. So make sure if you're looking to save anything there, make sure you get your own copy. Um, and then, as a reminder, servers are going offline tomorrow, the 28th at 10 a.m. Central. And in light of that, we are hosting different members of the dev team to share their experience of developing the game. Today, we have members of the art team to tell us what art is and how they've contributed to the project. And reminder that this is a select few of the folks that have worked on the game from the art team. So definitely shout out to the entire art team. But try to keep conversations related to what we discussed today in the chat, please. Please, thank you. First up, I'm Keenan. I'm your community manager. Nice to see you all again. Thank you for hopping in the chat. One more time for us. Let's play some matches later today. And I'm going to pass it to Ben.
Hey, my name's Ben. I was the art director on the project. I started on the project right when the project ran up, and mostly assumed art lead responsibilities and art direction.
Cool. Welcome to the stream. And then we'll go to Steve.
Hey folks, my name's Steven. I'm the character lead on Rumbleverse. Been playing in that role for the last maybe 2 or 3 years now. It's been a wild ride, but yeah, it's been fun. Character lead. That's spent most of my time in character and costume land.
Awesome, beautiful stuff. And then on to Jason.
Hey everybody, I'm Jason. I'm an art director at IG, Iron Galaxy on Rumbleverse, and I spent my time on environments mainly, uh, props, weapons, and environment VFX. And I was probably on the project about 2 years or so, I suppose, something like that.
Great. Thank you all for your time and contributions to the game. So first up, we have a presentation for today. Let's go ahead and transfer over to that. Some cool slides we got for you today. And yeah, it's gonna be a nice little art party. Good to go ahead to the next slide. All right, so we're gonna take a look at some early development. I believe Ben is gonna take us away.
Yep. So this is kind of an exciting image because, well, mostly because I don't think anybody's seen it yet outside of the Iron Galaxy universe. So this is really the very first image we put together as an art group after hearing about what Rumbleverse was supposed to be. So this kind of came together within the first 2 or 3 weeks on the project. And the thing that's exciting to me about this specific image is a lot of what we see here kind of persisted all the way up until like how Rumbleverse exists today. Whether that's like the high energy combat you see pictured here, the diverse cast of characters, some of the architectural details that you see like in the environment, whether that's like the suplex pun in the soup store in the background, or the bell you see in the tower in the background, obviously still in Grapital City. Then we have something that's not in the game today is like we have the granny kicking the dude sitting on the floor. Now, what that's supposed to embody, obviously we don't have abuse of the elderly in Rumbleverse, but what that's supposed to mean is that this is a world where everyone that's part of the city is totally engrossed in becoming the next champion. So it's regardless of your background or how old you are or what your job is, like every single person in this city is about the Rumble. So that's kind of how this image came together and why that specific picture is there. So some things that kind of evolved from this is obviously this is more of a wrestling focused shot, which is kind of how this game started. It started more as a wrestling specific game. And then as we developed it, we realized it was more fun to just bring in different combat forms, whether that's martial arts or street fighting, or there's still a lot of wrestling stuff as well. But that's one of the things that evolved from this initial kind of pitch image. The other thing that kind of evolved is the character style. We see these kind of like egg-shaped torso characters in this image, and there's still a little bit of that in one of our characters, but we wanted a more diverse body shape kind of to choose from like the 6 different body types that we have now. So that's something that evolved. We wanted the players to be able to pick their kind of body style. So that's something that's changed from this image. And then if we go to the next slide, please. Something that's also evolved from that initial image, and then some of the pictures that you see here on the left is the environment style. And we really tried to push those first two images you see on the left are our first go at what the Rumbleverse universe would look like. And a lot of that stuff persisted as well, but we really wanted to push our universe into something that felt lived in, had a different and unique style, like felt like it had history. So a few things came because of that. One of them is we had to sort of downscope the size of the island when we made that decision. So the original island, when I talk about the island, I'm talking about Grapital City, so season 1 island, was probably 3 to 4 times the size of what you see in Rumbleverse today. And we realized to meet the goals that we wanted to tackle as an art group, we're going to have to scope that down to get the fidelity that we were looking for. So that's kind of the first thing that happened. And I think that was ultimately, a good decision, at least from our perspective, because we, Jason and his team were able to accomplish a level of quality that we were really happy with on this project. So,
Certainly.
what's that? Do you have
Oh,
something?
I was saying, like, yeah, definitely. Like, you can see it in, I guess, the direction that we took with how we began with the first island and how we chose to advance with our second island.
Yeah, for sure. The personality, I think we kind of always evolved it. And I think Jason with Island 2 and Loki Key really pushed that to another level. So it was exciting to see how, our universe expanded and evolved from start to finish. So the second thing we did, if it's probably really hard to see for listeners, but the images in the middle. So our lead concept artist, he goes by Samurai Cop, but his actual name's Eric. He came up with these rules for the world, and there were really kind of 3 of them, and he would spit them out ad nauseum. But the main one was no straight lines, which sounds super simple, but that term really kind of pushed the visuals of what our world came to be. We really didn't want it to feel like a realistic universe. We wanted subtle bends and movements in the environment to create that style that everybody knows as Rumbleverse today. So that was kind of like one of the core visual tenets of the filter that we drove every asset through that was in the world. So the 3 were no straight lines, no symmetry, and then no repeating shapes. And what repeating shapes means, or repeating patterns means, is like if you build a fence, don't just create a board and repeat that 10 times and be exactly the same. Duplicate it, and then create some movement and adjust scale, and really have that playfulness and personality that we see in the universe. So those 3 tenets really drove the initial kind of explorations in our world. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Jason, based off kind of Cop's early kind of rules he put together.
No, I mean, I think that's exactly the way where we started from, and tried to take that and evolve it as we went through. That undulation through the scene was really important. Not only in like texture and like seams and bricks and structural details, but the actual geometry itself in buildings and struts and frameworks. But it played somewhat into difficult to make a game that has that and it's climbable at the same time. So there was certainly some fun challenges along the way to try and keep that visual fidelity and style, but keep things as climbable as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I imagine that was like one of the things about Rumbleverse is such a huge world, and Jason's team tried to build everything modularly, which means like you divide buildings up into smaller chunks, and that certainly made creating that movement more challenging. But it was just something we had to do to make it performant. But I think they crushed it and did a really good job with it. And then the next thing that kind of evolved from that is we also wanted to develop this world from a starting point, and it pulled back in like plausible ways. So we really talked about the universe initially from like, how would this city be constructed? So we started talking about like landmarks and points of interest, not only from a visual perspective to have like a distinctive world with personality, but also from like the player's perspective. So it was super easy for the player to run around and be able to talk about like, oh, I'm going to be in the Times Square area or the financial district, or I'm going southeast and by the subway or by Trophy Heights. Or so we put a lot of time and effort into like the narrative of how this world developed, and that's where a lot of these landmarks and points of interest kind of evolved from. Next slide, please.
And one question I'm actually seeing in the chat is, did we have any inspirations maybe from real world experiences that we maybe opted to pull from? As we're going through the sites, I think it'd be cool if there's any to maybe point out those connectedness. Thanks for that question in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good question. We actually talked about this a couple days ago, how like the subway area, like, so I don't know, maybe a good chunk of people know that one of Iron Galaxy Studios is in Chicago, and that a lot of the inspiration from that area underneath the subway was driven from kind of like the Chicago subways. Stephen would know. You read the subway option. What was it called?
Shout out the CTA, the L.
The L, baby.
That's right. So that was certainly part of it. Times Square and the financial district were driven a lot by, stuff you see in New York. There's a lot of reference images of just like dropping the little man in Google Earth and walking around and taking images, and then, finding what the Rumbleverse version of that is. Jason probably has more insight than I do to this, but those are kind of my initial thoughts.
No, I think you got it. I think there's certainly something to be said about kind of like the 1970s era architecture. I think there's a lot of threads of inspiration, whether it be Chicago or it be Detroit or New York, but North American big cities, kind of like motor cities. I think probably offered a good amount of inspiration through a lot of this. Yeah, at least Grapital City. Loki Key's a different thing, but yeah.
Whole different beast.
Yeah, and I'm seeing another chat in the stream, or it's saying, how about the name of the streets? Hopefully we touch on those too, because there's a handful of jokes within those.
Yeah, there's another one in there. One of them's Gainesville, which again we have a studio that's in Florida. There's a bunch of like Gator fans out there that are part of the dev team. I think that's one of them. None of the other ones jump to mind. What are some of the other street names?
Brony. Pile
Brony,
Drive.
yeah.
Those are the ones
Wrestling reference.
I remember the most.
Yeah. Shout out Ryan Sanderson put a lot of those names in, so shout out to him. But I don't know the inspiration for all of them.
Cool. Well, back onto the presentation.
Cool. So yeah, now we can kind of dive into what is Rumbleverse, and I kind of spun that question from, there was really 4 core pillars that we started with, and those never really changed when we sought out to create Rumbleverse. The first one to me was always kind of the most important, and that is, we see the bullet point here is humorous and zany. We really wanted people to laugh and have fun when they played this game from a gameplay perspective, but also from a visual style, and when they ran around the world and took the time to look at billboards and stuff like that. Like, we wanted people to enjoy being in the Rumbleverse universe. So from a world perspective, like, I dropped some images in there, and Jason will certainly dive into some of this stuff also, but like, that was kind of the litmus test for a lot of the, the buildings we made. Sousa Kim, one of the concept artists, he put together like the Gut Brothers building or storefront, which is one of my favorite buildings, in the whole game, because it has the Pickle Brothers, I think is what we call them. It's one of the pickles is like attacking the other one. I feel like you could make a cartoon just off of those 2 characters.
For sure.
It's so funny. Like, I'd love to see like how those characters evolved in a more fleshed out way. I think another one Sousa put together, it's kind of like a subdued building in the environment, was a building called Fanny's, and maybe only a few people will recognize what that building was. But so Jason and Cop and I were reviewing Sousa's artwork, and he was trying to explore what a fanny pack store would look like in Rumbleverse, and he had like all these taglines, and some of them are what you expect. There's like a purse on your hip, or I don't know, he had a string of them that actually made sense. And then the last one he wrote was Fannies, put your dreams in here. And Jason and Cop and I just burst out laughing. He's like, what does that mean? Does this person take fanny packs so seriously that he believes that the customers are putting their dreams in fanny pack? No offense if people are still rocking the fanny, props to you. But like, when we hit
fanny
that
packs
point,
are the most protective item, right? Like, you gotta respect them.
That's right.
Shout out dads going to theme parks, holding it down for families.
Exactly. But that was like the litmus test. Like, anything that made us laugh like that, we're like, well, hopefully some portion of the people that play our game get the same takeaway. So that's what we landed on. I don't remember if it evolved from "Put your dreams in here," but it was some sort of.
I'm proud to say, Ben, that it did not.
It did not.
It
What's
never
the tagline
evolved.
now?
That was the tagline. Put your dreams here was we felt like it was it would be, it's just sacred territory at this point.
Well, only you in the stream all know that
Yes.
little secret history tip now.
We're gonna have to change it tomorrow. So it says "Put your dreams in here" for the last day. But on a similar note, with the characters, again, always trying to push zany and the humor. We had a series when we were ideating character accessory sets. We kind of had a series of things that we were trying to hit with the characters. Some of them were, we wanted to make you laugh out loud. One of them was, is it something that's grounded in the universe? So like Squawky's a good example of that. There's a Squatch chicken and he's, part of an accessory set, or the hockey sensei here, like it feels like something that would come out of the universe. Some of it's just like fantastical stuff or things that people would aspire to wear. And a lot of times it was just us throwing two things that we felt like were in the universe together. I think a good example of that is that cross-country zombie that came together like super easily because we just felt like, well, what does zombie look like in Rumbleverse? Well, sport of cross-country, like there are not very many things that are more into cardio than zombies and cross-country. So let's just snap it's like a perfect marriage. We'll slap those two things together and that's like an accessory set. So we got to check a lot of that as well. Next slide. So the second tenet of Rumbleverse is a world built around the competition. And that kind of has like a dual meaning to me. One is that Jason and his group were tasked with an extremely difficult challenge in that, yes, this is a battle royale game, but it's a battle royale game that's a fighting game, and almost the whole world is traversable, which you don't necessarily always see in, shooters or other genres. So from that standpoint, one, they had to make everything climbable and be able to be fought around. But two, there's a really high level of verticality in our game. There's skyscrapers, you can run almost anywhere. That's how we get those big, like, impactful elbow drops and the threat of falling from those high spaces. So that's part of it, is they had to build an arena, not just a city, but an arena to fight in. The second part of that is we wanted a world with history. Like this isn't just a world that we've seen today. This is a world that developed around the competition. So you see the TKO sign there. Basically all of the signage, all the billboards, graffiti, everything is driven around the competition. So they needed to build a plausible world that was built around the Rumble. So there was a lot of thought that went into that process from that team specifically. And then I dropped that image there. I think we only used that image once, like in social media. It's one of my favorite pictures of the game because I feel like if somebody asked me, hey, what is Rumbleverse? And I could only use an image, like that would be the image I would send, because it's got like Squawky as the central figure, like the first read, and there's the punk character getting ready to hit him with a sign that she just ripped out of the ground. There's like fighting going on in different levels of verticality, and then all the bright colors and hard work that the environment put into it. So
Encapsulates a lot of different personalities along with the traversal aspect of the game, which you could be fighting literally anywhere on any surface, which is amazing.
Sure. So then one other thing that's in this image, maybe we'll touch on it later, but Steven's hot dog sign, which I think is probably the creepiest thing in the game, but for some reason Steven loves it. Why don't you explain why you like that sign so much, Steven?
I want to make sure that it's clear. I did not make the hot dog sign. I'm just a fan of the hot dog sign. But yeah, it's like so much of the signage in the game, like my favorite signs in the game, they all feel like decommissioned Las Vegas signs. It's like signs that are no longer operating in Las Vegas. They're just like large and chunky and over the top. And something about a hot dog with the face on it, it just speaks to me. What can I say? It speaks to me.
Hot dog with teeth is the only thing creepier than baby with teeth.
It's probably that expression is the worst as well, and I think it's positioned in a spot where it can kind of stalk you from so many different like lines of sight. That would probably explain the feeling there.
For sure. Cool. We can go to the next slide. So the next, third tenet of Rumbleverse is highly amplified explosive combat. It says combat, but it's really kind of the animation set in general. So big shout out to the animation team because they're the ones that really bring life to our characters, and they did a phenomenal job of making the combat impactful. Um, they're adding the humor to the characters through emotes and kind of how impactful that combat is. The traversal is super expressive. I think if we hit spacebar one more time, it'll play this little animation, on the slide. Anyways, so one of the things that kind of was the driving force was behind some of the humor for the animation style is we had about a third of the way through the project, a group of animators kind of pulled themselves aside and they created a little side project where they're like, how can we find the funny in how these characters move and fight with one another? And they were inspired by a lot of stuff like Looney Tunes and Three Stooges and some of those like old school cartoons and shows where everything's super animated. And a lot of that stuff persists today. One of my favorite animations is, I think it's the golf club, where like it's the finishing blow and you like hammer the person to the ground and like your feet go flying up above your head. And a lot of that stuff was spun out of the project that was called Chuckles, but like really they did a great job of finding the humor and the expressiveness and personality in how these characters animate. Next slide. I think I'll play the video.
I will never not love the like rolling in the air animation because it's just like complete out of control. Hopefully, I don't land in a bad place. Maybe I'll bounce off three different places. Maybe I'll end in the water. That like not knowing of where you're gonna end up next and then what's gonna be next that you have to tackle is always a fun part of the game.
Yeah, it's 700 flips flying through the air. No control over your destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Next slide. Then the final tenet is customization. So customization was obviously a huge part of our game. Steven's going to dive into this as far as like how our process works in our accessory system, but I wanted to dive in a little bit into like our ideation process and how we came up with ideas and stuff like that. So that process evolved a lot over the course of the project. Initially, there was just a few of us kind of coming up with ideas for what we thought people would want to accessorize themselves with. We have the 6 core body types, but really we approached those from the standpoint of we wanted players to use those, widely variant silhouettes as a canvas to paint themselves on top of. We wanted you to pick our accessories and then really imprint yourself on your character and not have us, force feed you a skin or come up and tell you, what to dress up as. So early on, there was a few of us that developed ideas for that. And fairly quickly, we kind of realized that one, we weren't totally sure what people would like. Like we knew what we liked, but we were always surprised by just like internal tests, what people love to play. We have I'm really into sports. And, I was very influenced by like 80s and 90s action movies and hip hop, and those were kind of my influences. But everybody has different interests. And from that, we kind of decided we needed to start pulling developers. We have a pretty large studio, so we wanted to start getting ideas of what other people's interests were. And I think, Keenan, you're a great example of that. You were the originator on, I don't know what the public facing name of the set is. We call it the hip hop set internally. But
Yeah, the hip hop set. And really quick, I want to touch on a note. I feel like another cool observation I had of just watching the character art team was seeing certain sets kind of be like combinations of ideas where like the one you see on the screen, like baseball ninja, because you could see like there's a mask element there, but like you can see like a ninja maybe holding a weapon behind them, and hey, what if it's a bat? Oh, maybe it's a baseball player, where you could see like the combinations of stuff. But then we also, I feel like, kind of evolved into, well, what if we make a straight hazmat suit set, then straight punk set, and then what if we give the player um, the choice to combine those how they will, to make whatever new combination. I feel like it's really cool to see like the different approaches there, And I know personally, like the one contribution that you just mentioned that I initially started up on was the hip hop set. And it was a super cool opportunity because obviously my job, I'm community manager. I don't necessarily work on art every day. But Iron Galaxy was really cool in the sense that they're like, hey team, let's field some ideas. We did like a team wide survey of, hey, what other ideas does the team have internally that they are maybe passionate about? And like one example, we had a cat set in the game, and I think Adam Hart was like, well, what if we have a dog set in the game? It was like the no brainer, but uh, having those ideas come from the team and source in different places is really cool. And my idea, because I'm a dancer on the side, that's a personal passion hobby of mine. Uh, and I kind of made that well known to Iron Galaxy, and they approached me. I was like, "Hey, what would you want to maybe see in a hip hop set?" And I know what we kind of evolved into was a slight shout out to my dance crew, Second Wind. You can see like the little peace sign logo, along with what is hip hop. We had a lot of conversations there to make sure we're respecting the culture, and the thing we kept falling back into is Run DMC kind of vibes with like the tracksuit. And we evolved the ideas from there into like the four different accessory sets you all now see in the game today. So that was a really cool experience where maybe it was like a month and a half of going through pass and pass and pass to see how we can evolve the idea to what it is now.
Yeah, for sure. That was also one of my favorite sets. It was one of his favorite sets to work on, and also one of my favorites to just kind of see how it came out. But you mentioned the cat set. The cat set was like the one that changed my perspective on how these were created, because like we went through making it and I was like, nobody's gonna like this one. And it ended up being like by far the most popular one internally because of how people mixed and matched, that set with other sets and how much it changed, because it's a giant mask and you no longer see the character's head. And yeah, it's just, you never know who's gonna like what. I've definitely learned that in game development. It's very difficult to tell, what people are going to like, and that definitely changed my perspective on characters for sure. Next slide. I think it's the last one.
Yeah. It was really cool to see as a final parting comment, just like the collaboration between like art folks and not art folks and what ideas could come up from those. Sorry, back to you.
Yep, all good. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was Squawky. So Squawky's the chicken. He or she ended up becoming the face of Rumbleverse almost kind of accidentally. And the evolution of that character to me is super interesting because it really started with that concept in the top left of the person like squatting. Well, you can't see what's in the billboard, but it ends up that they're squatting like these racks of chickens. So again, Eric, the lead concept artist, was like, what does a chicken restaurant look like in Rumbleverse? Like, what if there's just like these people, blasting out deep squats to cook the chicken over fire, and they're, making a bunch of racket in the back and sweating all over your food. And that's kind of how that like franchise evolved. And they're like, oh, we need a mascot for what that looks like. Like, who's flipping the 20% off sign, out front? So that's, what if it's like a yoked up, chicken with a weight belt and, the wrist wraps on their arms, and like these tiny legs. And that was kind of the end of it. And then we started to put together key art for season 1. And we were trying to find like different characters for the different shots. And it's the one with like the chicken flying towards you and the image, which I didn't drop in here, but probably should have. We're like, well, we don't want like a singular face to be like the face of season 1 in Rumbleverse initially. So we'll just make it a mascot. So it ended up like that's how Squawky became like the kind of the unstated mascot of Rumbleverse initially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the other thing about squats is like I think it really embodies the 4 tenets we kind of ran through. Like there's some level of humor there. It's built in the universe, and that there's squats, chickens all over the place, and billboards, and it's part of the lore. Gameplay integration, and that chicken gives you health, so that's a huge part of gameplay. And then customizable, so you can use Squawky to dress your character up, and it's part of the accessory system. So I think it's one of those things that just kind of fell into place and kind of exemplifies the 4 core tenets of like what we were trying to accomplish with Rumbleverse from the start.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my last slide.
Cool. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Good to go on to the next. All right. Next up, I believe we got Steve talking character art and customization. Actually, sorry, Steve. I don't think I hear ya. No problem. He did have to reboot one crash. You know, it happens to the best of us. But recently,
Can you hear me now?
there we go. We got him back.
Look at that. Cool. I was celebrating this chart that I made. You couldn't hear me. But I thought it would be fun to dig into kind of the nuts and bolts of the accessory system, how it all functions,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically some of our goals with that system. It is very complicated to make a customization system, and we tried to do some things that were a little bit different.
Right.
So I thought it'd be fun to dive into that. But first, we'll talk about this chart. I'll generally break character customization down into two categories or put them at two ends of a spectrum. At one end, there's granular customization, right? So that's games like The Sims and Animal Crossing. And in those games, players have a lot of different points of customization on the character, right? You could change hairstyle, hair color, shirts, jackets, things of that nature. A lot of player control. But the overall silhouette and shape and form of that character is pretty restricted, right? In Animal Crossing, you're making all of your changes on that one base mannequin, right? You're just putting features on top of it. In The Sims, you can make some changes to the character's form, but those changes happen over a predictable continuum, right? You could make a character slightly thinner or wider, or you can make them taller or shorter, but the proportions are normally in line with one another. At the other end, with character skins, right, you could really drive the look of your character to look completely unique from the next one, right? From a distance, the read of each character could feel super unique. But the player has very little control over those shapes, right? You could change like the color variant maybe or some decals on top. But overall, player doesn't have a lot of inputs there. And then in the middle, you've got games like Fall Guys, right? In Fall Guys, they actually get a lot of fun, playful silhouette breakups with their different customization options. But those options are limited to like upper body and lower body and gloves, things of that nature. And those changes are only on that one little Fall Guys bean. In Rumbleverse, we knew we wanted to bridge the gap between these two with the system that we created. So come up with the system that gives players granular customization options, a lot of opportunities for players to drive the look of their character, but also have that result in very distinct reads. So each player could make a completely unique character that from a distance has a unique silhouette, unique read, but completely created by that character or by that player. You could hit the next slide. So this is one of the first concept images exploring what the accessory or customization system would look like. And this was, at the genesis of the game. So it was originally based off of those little like egg-shaped, those little meatball bodies, right? But you could see it's just exploring what it would look like to have, luchador masks, mixing and matching with shirts and different skin tones, faces, things of that nature, just to get a feel for it. You could hit the next slide. So from that point, the art team wanted to go much wider with the shapes and silhouettes they got out of the characters. So they started to really push things to extremes, right? So it was very clear from a distance which body type was which. And it's much easy to go to an extreme when you're at this phase of a project, really push things and then rein yourself in over time. That's far easier than starting with like a really rigid foundation, starting too serious, and then trying to inject personality over time. It just doesn't work as well that way. And it was actually cool at this phase. We had concept artists doing a bunch of these little thumbnails for body types, but our animators were brought in as well to come up with some shapes. And animators have like have an eye for shape and movement and design in a way that other artists don't. But together, concept artists and animators did like hundreds of these little body sketches, right? So this is just like a small sample, but you could see with those pullouts there, those are, you could see like a Looney Tunes sort of aesthetic started to emerge.
Someone literally just mentioned in the chat too. The art style almost reminds me of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it has like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe. And I think those ones on the right were all done by Eric, or AKA Samurai Cop, who helped really develop a lot of the creative personality of the game. You could hit the next slide. Ultimately, we landed on these 6, right? So 6 body types, 3 male, 3 female, each with a muscular, plump, and lean variation. It became very important to the team that we created a selection of body types that reflected the full spectrum of body types in the real world, right? Make a customization system that allowed players to feel seen in the game, feel like they could recreate something that felt like it was reflective of them and their personality and even their body type. So I'm happy that we pushed for these 6 characters and body types over just the one little meatball body type. You could hit the next slide. Ultimately, when we moved into 3D, we stripped out a lot of the extra subtle details. So like individual abs or individual veins on muscles, we pulled that stuff out and went for like a cleaner, more immediate read. Normally with stylization, you have to commit to a full stylization, or with realism, you have to commit to something closer to realism. But if you try to occupy like that space in between and pull details from both, it's very easy to fall into like that uncanny valley and things get really awkward and they feel unnatural. So we stripped out a lot of that detail and simplified and stylized a lot of the characters so they have a cleaner, like a quicker, more immediate read. But with each character, as you've seen, there's multiple skin tones, face variants, eye colors, eyebrows, things of that nature. Something to think about when you think of 6 body types versus that one single body type is with Animal Crossing, if I make a t-shirt in Animal Crossing, I'm making one t-shirt, right? I'm just making one version of the shirt. In Rumbleverse, if we're making a pair of pants, you need 6 versions of each pair of pants. So that alone is a lot to manage. That's a lot of overhead. You've got 6 of everything in the game. But what's even more complicated, because our body types are so different from one another, if you look at the thighs on the female character, the second from the right, our heavier female character, and look at the thighs of our thin male character, look at the difference in shape between those two and scale of their legs. Every pair of jeans we make in the game has to be available on both of those body types. It has to look good on both characters, right? We can't have it looking crummy on one and great on another. But it also has to feel consistent on both of them, right? It has to feel like the same pair of jeans, but somehow we have to make that happen with legs that are drastically different in shape and size, which is a huge challenge. I think in the end, ultimately, it results in more playful characters that players can create, but it's a huge challenge to make that work.
One thing I
You could
love
hit
about
next slide.
this
Yeah.
too, sorry, before we move on, is I really love the idea of like getting to connect or associate with a certain body type that maybe not is traditionally like yours. Like I know a personal favorite of mine. I love rocking the body type on the second from the right. I know a lot of players like rocking the skinnier body types for a gameplay advantage or so. But feeling like you can connect with maybe a body type that's maybe traditionally associated with male or female, but you know what? Hey, I like this one. I associate myself with this one, and I'm gonna rock accessories that feel good on this body type, despite traditional understandings or norms. And being able to represent yourself in that way is a really nice gift.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make them. I mean, the body type I always play as is the short, little, plump meatball guy. As much as I talked about we left the meatballs behind, like I play as the meatball every time I play. Cool. You could hit the next slide. So one thing we knew we wanted to experiment with is accessory layering. A lot of games that offer customization, they'll offer discrete zones you could swap things in and out on. But we wanted to find a way to allow players to layer on multiple accessories within one of those zones, right? What's difficult about this is as soon as you start to layer accessories, you have to worry about accessories clipping through one another. So we had to be thoughtful about the distances, that buffer room we gave between each accessory, build them in such a way that there's enough breathing room to prevent clipping. But you don't want too much breathing room because then it looks like accessories are floating. Characters could look like too bulky. So we had to find the right balance between those two. But ultimately, accessory layering really helps us drive the look of our characters. It can really allow players to make a unique character when you can mix and match a bunch of accessories. Like the total number of possible combinations just explodes as soon as you can start layering things on top of one another. You could hit next. So to avoid some of the awkward accessory combinations, with each of our body types, we've broken them down into 5 primary regions and 15 subregions. So the legs, for example, are a primary region, and within that you've got the thighs, the knees, and the calves. But under the hood, every single accessory in the game is tagged with these overlap regions, right? We tag specifically where it lies on the body. So that prevents, say, 2 shirts from being equipped at the same time, or a tight pair of gloves that go up the forearm being equipped with a tight long sleeve t-shirt, for example. On the left there, that image is of our tool in our 3D software. But basically, we would just click exactly where it's occupying on the body. And again, every single one under the hood, doesn't matter what it is flagged with its overlap regions. And that helps us organize everything. You can hit next. So we'll normally break our accessories down into 3 categories. You could hit next slide. This is going to be like a speed run. So I don't know if we should have a signal for as we go through this. But so layer 1 is skin tight. So this is things like this tight long sleeve shirt, spandex, things of that nature. Layer 1 accessories do not break silhouette. They're designed to have like a coat or an elbow pad on top of it. They don't really change the character's shape or form outside of that base character. Notice even the collar on that shirt has been designed in such a way that it's kind of flush with the body, right? It doesn't really break silhouette. And that's, again, so it could be customizable with a bunch of other things on top of it. Next. The other category is layer 2. So that's things like jackets and elbow pads, skirts. Layer 2 accessories are designed to sit on top of other objects, and they could break silhouette all they want, right? You could really push and pull the shapes and the forms there. Next. The last one is a little more complicated. This is layer 1 exceeds layer thickness. The way we try to think of this category is this is a skin-tight accessory that breaks the silhouette in a few overlap regions. So on this accessory, the arms are skin-tight. They don't break silhouette at all. You could hit the next slide. So players can layer on like gloves, elbow pads, things of that nature, anything in the arms. But then in that torso, with that octopus, it breaks silhouette there. So players can't layer anything on in the torso and abdomen region. So no coats, no jackets, nothing like that. Next. Under the hood, this is how we would flag this particular accessory. We'd say it occupies the chest, abdomen, bicep, and elbow and forearm regions. Next slide. And we say it exceeds layer thickness in the chest and abdomen regions. So we'll tag it under the hood that way, and that allows it to combine with desired accessories, and it prevents it from combining with accessories that we don't want. So we'd avoid awkward clipping with those tentacles.
And that probably leads us to why, like, certain accessories, if you try to wear one with like another, and you're like, oh wait, the game's not letting me. This is to minimize, I guess, those kind of clipping moments.
Yeah, and I should have included a slide about this because that's a very difficult problem to solve. Because if you think about a pair of pants with like a really chunky stylized belt buckle, right?
Right.
A chunky stylized belt buckle that breaks silhouette would prevent you from layering something on top of it because from the developer's end, we have to worry about that belt buckle now poking through that other object that's there. And there are some older accessories from the start of the game where we gave it chunky belt buckles. We don't really do that anymore because we found that design items like a belt buckle, no matter how big and chunky they are, they don't really clearly communicate to the player that they should limit customization options. Like a belt buckle doesn't inherently say, I can't wear anything else with this, you know? So we have to be very conscious about when we do choose to break silhouette and prevent customization, how are we communicating it? Are we making the object that's preventing customization large enough and big enough to properly communicate that?
Right.
And the answers like to that aren't always clear. You can't know the answer all the time until it's live in the wild. And at that point, it's hard. It can be hard to change things. And that's something that we got better at over time. But there's accessories we made at the very beginning that went in the wild and we're like, oh shit, I'd love to change the way that functions, but we can't at this point.
Right. I imagine the same thing happens to like if there's like a bigger top or a bigger jacket, it's not gonna work too well with my bottom because it overlaps like that waist area.
Yeah. The waist is like very complicated. As soon as you have a jacket that's like maybe crosses the waistline by a few inches, that makes life so much more complicated.
Makes sense. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah. You could hit next. We also utilize something called skin hiding. So on all 6 of our body types, we've assigned the different zones of their body, the underlying faces of the geometry of the character, a specific skin hiding zone. So think fingertips, palm, wrist, forearms. They're assigned a material in game that makes those sections of skin transparent. So we could hide them. This was born as a way originally to make our tech artists' lives easier. Think about when they're skinning a shirt for animation to get a shirt to move with the character. A worry of theirs would be the skin poking through the shirt. But if we can hide the skin beneath the shirt, it immediately removes worry about that issue. It helps with performance too, because all of those faces being hidden, the skin, the verts of the skin of that underlying mesh,
Hmm.
they're not loaded in game, so it helps with performance. And then on the left there, you can see that's a visualizer of the tool that we use in Maya there. That one we made in later development, so it's like it's a little more disturbing looking because you could see the actual body there cut up. You could hit next.
But really quick, as you
Yeah.
briefly mentioned performance, I know like one of the question marks sometimes players don't immediately understand is the style budget.
Yeah.
We see that little bar in the top right while you're in the locker room, but what does that mean? And I guess explain it for us.
Yeah, style budget, really in the back end, it has more to do with performance, right? Each item in the game has a cost to performance depending on how complicated that asset is. And the more costly it is on performance, the higher that style budget score is, right? So it's not necessarily which object looks the coolest. Really what's going on under the hood is this object here is more expensive than that object, so you can't do like 20 of this object, right? We
Mm,
have to have a hard limit there, which can be a bummer, right? Because there's certain combinations you may want to make, but it
right.
can't be at the cost of a good frame rate, right? It's more important that the game is running smoothly than you being able to equip 40 afros at the same time.
Right. You want to maintain that performance for everyone in that 40-person lobby.
Yeah, big time. Um, so what's cool about skin hiding is we found that when you could turn off a character's hand and hide their skin, you can replace it with whatever you want. So you could replace it with a pirate hook. With the mariachi set, right, we're hiding the entire character body below the neck and replacing it with that skeleton body. You could turn off a character's whole head and replace it with whatever you want. But this became a pretty powerful tool in our toolbox to drive the look of each character.
Mm.
Next slide, please. The last tool in our toolbox is our body mod tool. We developed a tool internally that automatically fits the accessory to all 6 of our body types. Now the tool can do a portion of that work. Ultimately, it takes our character artists to come in and finish that fitting to each character. It is very difficult for a tool to automatically figure out how to translate the shapes of each accessory to our 6 body types because they are so different. It takes a human eye to figure out the proper translation of all of that. So we have to balance between having the tool do some work to save us time and having our artists put their talents to use. You could hit the next slide. A big goal of that body mod phase is, again, each accessory has to be offered on each character, but it has to look good on each character, and the read has to be consistent, right? And it is very difficult to figure out how to get, think of just that mariachi, that skeleton body type, right? There's no way a tool is going to figure out how to properly scale the bones of the rib cage and stuff. We have to be very, very thoughtful about how we build things and how we're scaling them and positioning them on each body type so they feel representative of the set as a whole, but very specifically catered to each of our body types.
Right.
Next slide. So all of those things kind of like under the hood, they serve to make the accessory system work. They make it possible to have all of these accessories work on all 6 body types seamlessly in the locker room. Next slide. A few more here. Hopefully you're still enjoying yourselves because I'm having fun.
Oh yeah. No
okay.
worries.
So the action figure set was actually one of my favorite accessory sets that we got to make because to me it is the best expression of our accessory system. It achieves the read of an entirely new character, right? It's the equivalent of a skin, but with the added benefit of individual parts and pieces that you could mix with our whole library of accessories, It's accessory sets like this one that have helped us make good on that original goal of bridging that gap between granular customization and the distinct read you get from a full body skin.
Hmm.
If you hit the next slide, I'll dig into that a little bit for you. A big way we were able to achieve this was through skin hiding. With the action figure set, we just hide the entire underlying character, right, and replace it with these action figure parts. Notice that we built the parts so that they fit below layer 2. If you look on this character, that yellow image overlaid over the body. That's a visualizer for where layer 2 begins and ends, right? So if we make a coat, it has to sit on top of those yellow lines. But with the action figure set, we designed it in such a way that it doesn't break silhouette outside of layer 2. Any changes to that character's shape come from cutting into his form, right? We cut into the silhouette and utilize negative space to drive the read of the character. But by not breaking out of layer 2, players can not only change their torso to look like an action figure, but they can still layer on elbow pads. You could still layer on jackets. You could still layer on coats. It leads to like, completely unique characters from one player to the next. If you hit next. If you also notice how it looks on all 6 of our characters, we've designed it in such a way that the individual chunks are completely separate pieces that loosely align with those overlap regions we talked about. So there's like the upper torso, there's the abdomen, biceps, forearm. By keeping them as separate chunks like that, building them as separate chunks, it became way easier to scale and distort those pieces to best suit all 6 of our body types. Also notice the set feels consistent on all 6 characters. It still feels like the action figure set, but each body type brings a different personality to the set. Like the muscular female can look more imposing with this one, but the short little meatball guy, there's a playfulness to the set on him, or the thin characters, there's a playfulness. That to me speaks to the power of our accessory system in these 6 body types, right? Each accessory set, it's fun to just load it up in the locker room and see what it looks like on each character and just play around with the read on each character.
Yeah.
You could hit next. But once that set's done, right, it's integrated into the locker room and you can mix and match it with whatever you want. And that to me is what's so cool about all this is, 2 people spending 5 minutes in the locker room can make a completely unique set of characters, right? It really feels like you're a kid playing in a toy box with a bunch of action figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at this image, like it's been so cool to see over the last few weeks, all of the accessories be unlocked and look through the Discord to see what players have been created. It's really shown the power of the system. Yeah, it's been like a huge highlight over the last few weeks.
I feel like this game gave me, like, when I had action figures as a kid, like, oh, it'd be really cool if this head fit on that figure. And then I could literally do that in this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, the options are endless, and it's super awesome.
So I agree with Steve. Like, that was one of my favorite sets, just because I thought there's a universe where you could just make like 300 action figure sets and just have a game of like action figures fighting each other. So also, Steven's too humble, so I'll give him the shout out because he was the one that put forth the idea to do that set. So.
Yes, the set is awesome. It's not awesome because I worked on it. It's awesome because everyone on the team put something into the set. Like, it represents the work of a lot of people. But to me, it's the best expression of the work of the entire team. And like, it looks great. It functions great in the system. If you hit the next slide, just to like illustrate what's so cool about this is like underneath all of that is still those base 6 body types, right? It's still those 6 characters we started with at the beginning, but we were able to push and pull all the tools within that system to really change the look of them, right? To change them into something that looks completely different. If you hit the next slide, I think it's the last one. But when you take all of those customization options together that we went over, so every accessory set in the game, every body type, every skin tone, Ben did the math on this. So I think it checks out. I will take Ben's word that it checks out. But he said the total number of possible combinations tops, I think it was 16 trillion. It was like over 16 trillion, which is way more than almost any game. And that's because we offer so many different body types. Each accessory is offered 6 times. You got multiple skin tones. And what I appreciate most is that we were able to take an accessory set that was originally envisioned to support like wrestlers with spandex and elbow pads and luchador masks, and using the tools in that system, we were able to push and pull it to take it beyond those original goals, right? It ended up somewhere far more over the top, somewhere far more playful. And to me, it's like highlight of my career so far, getting to work on a team with this, see what the community has done with it. It's really been a pleasure, for real. Like, this has been so much fun. The best creative exercise so far of my career, by a mile.
It's awesome. Shout out to the team and yourself for contributing in such a significant way.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. That's it. That's my spot.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. And then we'll move on to Jason for the next section.
Yeah, so I think this was one of the beginnings. I think this was a very early neighborhood that was being worked on, and trying to kind of get the art style a little more fine-tuned. Taking those notes that been mentioned earlier, those four rule sets, and applying them, but also digging a little deeper, trying to find notes that felt like they were more heroic, but also kind of felt that they had that slappy, zany feel to them, that they were easily readable, that you could use them to navigate with, and we could expand with as well, and use as a baseline. So yeah, it was a kind of a first pass in this section, but still a lot to go over, many things to still figure out. Cars, other parts of the district, or island rather. But that was kind of the beginnings, right, of where we started with the environment pieces and signage and all the good stuff there. Next slide, please. And there was a whole lot more to go. So you can see that there's some basic ideas in place. There's a lot of gray box or proxy pieces in, but and when I say that, that's like testing blocks, things that make it feel high or low, or like it's an older part of the town because of like the way things are built, or it's like like a coastal city with roads and nice rocks and palm trees just stubbed in to kind of get that more paradise look. Even like the wrestlers battling in like the distance on the far right, that was a POI, or a point of interest that needed to be figured out. And eventually we changed this to something that was a lot more climber friendly, let's say. This was very cool and kind of captured the feel of like kind of a wrestling world or a fighter world, but very difficult to make climbable.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
One thing looking at the slide makes me think of is, I know a lot of like the initial interviews of like leadership in the beginning of what are our eyes looking at here when we look at the game. Obviously, like the character customization gives us plenty to work with, but I think like an unspoken character of this game is the environment, the amount of personality, the amount of love and care, attention to detail. The environment alone is something that you can just stare at for days because there's just so much within it.
Certainly tried to bring out a lot of that, of like that celebration, and make each district kind of have its own feeling, and make it pop out, but also sort of make it feel like a caricature, and make it make it interesting. Yeah, so that's kind of where we had like all the design blockouts and our proxies put in, and we moved along to just the next stage of production. If you want to go next slide. Once we had things more locked in, we did kind of bigger, big broad, big picture concepts. This is a pretty good one from Sam Kopp. Was like the lead concept artist on the game, and he did a great job of sticking with like the block out, but trying to push on the signage and push on like the zany aspects of like the burger restaurants, and the arcades, and like just the amount of like just overload the scene to make it interesting and cool, and feel like a world you'd want to explore. Um, but this was kind of that. This is a shot from the Times Square section,
Mm.
to begin like kind of the art process of let's start pulling things out, and doing breakout concepts, and trying to get the art team psyched and ready to go, and on to producing this big old thing here.
So this concept piece was made ahead of time before the city was even built. Then.
It was sort of a combination. So there was proxy, or like kind of block out pieces put in, but I don't believe they were this tall. I think he went and did a little bit more exaggeration in some of the height in this place, because we wanted to have, it was really important to have some skyscrapers that felt big like Times Square, and had kind of more of like a dwarfing effect on you when you were walking by. Just to kind of make it feel more iconic and interesting, and of course a lot of fun to jump around on, and do some pretty crazy elbow drops from
Yeah,
way up.
for sure.
Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and like once we had it, it was more about like let's pull things apart, trying to get some more local concepts built for these things. These came from our partners over at Pingle, which did a great job a lot of the concepting individual pieces and parts, and they really picked up the style well and helped us a whole bunch. But yeah, there's some really cool ones like the Jack Cola sign, the Hard Body Hotel. There's Steven's favorite, the Dog's Bowls, which I think is kind of more of a hot dog ice cream treat that we never really kind of fully got to, but some fun stuff. And then we had like the Spike volleyball gym, which was another nice one. Next slide, please. Yeah, here's like this same idea behind the old downtown section. So this is the one that it's kind of the old like kind of turn of the century industrial side of town. You got like the L tracks there and a lot of kind of low end businesses, older stuff all around. There's like a lot of steam and puddles and graffiti, all the things that we love that make it feel alive and interesting. Next slide, please. Let's show off some of the kind of updates. Yeah, so there's a couple more angles on this side of town. But yeah, just again, same premise. Pull things apart. Let's start to get some details going and explore some like the cool art behind it,
Mhm.
like the grocery pit and the TKO noodle bar and like the Mass Blasters big giant factory, which Mass Blasters is like the manufacturer of like a lot of the pods that players would use in game for stats, for refilling or
Oh,
consumables. So yeah, it was kind of a cool little. Well, let's just make like the actual factory where it makes these things and stick it in the world. But yeah, that's kind of like that's how we went along with this one. Next slide, please. This is a little further out, so it's block out meshes. This is when I say block out, it's just kind of more of like the art side of things, taking design notes and conventions and beginning to add details from the art side of where windows go, garage doors, trims, trying to get streets to feel a little better, putting in trash cans, trying to dress things to where and we're keeping scale in mind. But still, it's still not quite there yet. Like we have a ways to go. We've got some art in, but we need to one up it and try to take it to polished. And this is, I think, the next one's going to be that. So next slide, please. And you can see, like, top left, pulled that shot there from the original, and then like the right is the overpaint.
mm,
Just trying to explore like a lot of the color bleeds and pooling of like different kind of contrast colors, warms and cools that we like to use in the environments. The signage, getting the amount of wear and tear and grunge put into the scene, and like the colors, kind of going for like that older, more vintage look for some of the buildings. Yeah, and some sky details there as well up top. So yeah, just trying to kind of let's tighten the bolts a little further and just take it to the next level. Next slide, please. That spawned this kind of exploration into what the sky was going to be for the game, at least like the initial just standard sky. So we did a lot of sky uh, captures in the game. We used some kind of volumetric systems to try and get the look and feel down. They're all a little bit different in ways, so we wanted something that's kind of a little bit more fluffy and has nice volume and weight to it, but wanted to make sure that the spacing was right and that it felt like it gelled well with the environment because it's half the screen, right? So it's going to make a really important, a big impact on the visuals of the game. So skies, we're always trying to push those and make those as nice as possible. But yeah, bottom right, I think is kind of like the amount of kind of negative space versus cloud detail we went with. We can see that in like the next slide. I think is the
actually,
bigger.
quick
Yeah,
question
yeah.
here. And I know we lightly touched on it last week, talking about the sky. But as far as like exploration of, I guess the idea of having a day night cycle, what were conversations like there, if any? And then I guess whatever context you could share there.
Yeah, we talked about it quite a bit. I mean, we were logging for a night or an evening or maybe like a Hollywood night of some kind.
Hmm.
We were setting up plans for it. There's obviously some trickiness to it with it being a fully dynamic scene in an open world, but it was certainly like on the radar in terms of things we were shooting for. Yeah.
Cool, cool. I imagine probably like weather implications or complications there too.
Definitely. Nothing sounds more exciting than fighting in the rain, right? And having like the storm, some kind of storm
I
effect.
I hear it now, the whoop 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 whoop, and someone just slipping. It's like a puddle.
Absolutely.
Thinking
Down,
about it now.
down for that. Yeah.
I want to add to Jason's point here on the day and night stuff.
Hmm.
Day and night cycles is like one of the best examples. There are many examples of this, but it is like a great example of something that from the player end feels like, yeah, just make a night version of it, make a day version of it, no problem. Check the box. That's the night version.
Give us the
Um,
context. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think people realize like how difficult it is to completely change the lighting of your game and still have things look good and still be like readable because so much thought goes into how they build the environment and where they're putting, how they're adjusting colors of a certain building so it reads well from a distance and the silhouette of each of those buildings. And as soon as you change the lighting in the environment, like all of those relationships break down and you have to be thoughtful about how you maintain those relationships in a completely new lighting environment. Like it takes so much work to make that happen. There is no night switch that you flick in a game.
Yeah. I see Ramon in the chat right now. He said engineers everywhere sweating.
One of the bigger challenges is actually, so all of our interiors are fake. I don't know if you get into that, Jason, but like our interiors are fake, essentially cube maps. So they're really just images. And we would have to redo a version of all of those to make them look like lights are on or it's not being illuminated by lights from the outside. And that would have taken a huge time sink.
Yeah, for sure. And there's also I guess like the need for once the lights go down or go dim, right? That street lights turn on and that the billboards are lit and that you have kind of that sprawling, artificial city, which of course would have been lovely, but as you said, Keenan, I'm sure the engineers are still sweating to this day from those conversations.
For sure.
Yeah, cool. Next slide, please. And yeah, that's the one. That's the one we ended up doing the bigger layers. More sort of translucency to the clouds or transmission from the sky. And yeah, just kind of trying to gel that with like the more stylized Saturday morning cartoon look of the city. Yeah. Next one, please. Yeah, so these were some of the kind of references we're pulling together on the downtown area. So looking for a lot of puddles, almost kind of like that area of the town just never dries out. It's just always kind of damp and has water damage. Loved the idea of foliage growing through the sidewalks and like the cracks. It actually having quite a few being used and just having a lot more personality to it. The colors from like kind of 1970s New York, and that kind of like that middle column there, and some of the old businesses, that were from who knows when back in the day. Lots of shuttered businesses as well, just kind of give it that feeling that it's quite a bit older.
I think what's also
Yeah,
cool here is if my you see we see a lot of the reference photos here, but I feel like no matter where we are in the world, we may have our own personal references to tie to similar environments, or it's definitely something we've seen in a movie that we watched or a TV show. That relatability is pretty cool.
definitely. Yeah, it helps a lot to pull like those pop culture elements into things to make it more like relatable
Yeah.
to people. Yeah. But yeah, just like lots of neon, kind of getting some Chinatown feeling in there as well. Uh, but yeah, next one. These are some of the props that got made based on some of those references and concepts that we prepared. So just again going back into this style of this particular portion of the city, trying to embrace that and all of these props that were created. Yeah, love the look on those things. Next slide, please.
I think one thing, sorry if we may go back in that last
Go ahead.
slide. One really cool thing too is I feel like whenever you see these light up signs, it gives you the idea in your head like, well, Squats is a vendor that has a lit up window. Maybe in the future, tarot psychic readings will give me some kind of perk or some kind of a bonus in the future. And I feel like just walking through the city, you have the ideas in your head of what could be, which is fun to look at.
Yeah, and we did that with machos and muscles, and that was
Right, right,
cool.
yeah. But Macho's in the game right since season one, and then it eventually landed in the future. So the what if of everything in the environments, it's fun to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's all possible, right? You never know where the inspiration is going to come from. I, mean, I would have loved personally to have seen like a Hammer Shacks actually, be able to have like windows for vending of, tools, or it's kind of more of like a Radio Shack, but I'm sure we could have figured out some kind of melee element to that.
Hmm.
I wanted to add like just one little note here. We got to work on Killer Instinct, in another life, and we made Kim Woo's level. I don't know if anybody in the chat is familiar with Kim Woo from Killer Instinct, but she had this cool Chinatown level that's like wedged between a bunch of buildings with all these neon signs. And there's so much of Rumbleverse that reminded me of that level that we made. Like there's so many lessons I could see that we pulled from that Kim Woo experience and brought it to Rumbleverse. Yeah. Yeah. Kim Woo could walk, or what is it? Kim Woo walk so Rumbleverse could run. That's it.
That's a
That's
great
it.
T-shirt.
There's like there's so much DNA from that Killer Instinct experience and so much of Rumbleverse.
Nice, cool, thanks. Let's see, next one, please. And yeah, I mean, who can forget like Buns of Steel, Workout, those sort of graffitis, vegan power around that area, that block. I think a lot of those were great references to the competition and like the games and a fighter's life. And health, even like for vegan power, health and keeping in shape. A lot of fun to be had with that. And then of course some of the like kind of like lower end signs that are older. Some of them are more hand painted. These karate signs, or there's like a black belt volleyball, you know, uh, dojo. There's like a aggressive stretching, yoga training, and tea room. We tried to find. Not only was it, you know, like karate or kickboxing, but tried to think of it in terms of like, well, maybe baseball's a fighting style, or volleyball's a fighting style, or yoga's a fighting style, and tried to think of like how that would be embraced in the Grapital City world.
Hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Next one, please. Yeah, some just bigger call outs. I mean, there's like the tracks. We've got like the lucha, um, water dispensing, um, rooftop thing there. We've got the psychic signs. So yeah, just trying to put those into sections of the city to give players good reads on where they're going. Add a little bit more dressing and points of interest to things as we went along. So those are really important to make not only like without them it would just be like a simple flooring or like a upper um, you know a tarred rooftop or like just like a basic street. So these really help to kind of punch out the look of things and make it a lot more fun. Next slide, please. And this was kind of more of like this is the more of like towards like the final look of things with graffitis, and we had the foliage going and some of these lots that were abandoned. Like the water was present and a lot of the little spillways and the side sections of like the roads. Buildings were propped out pretty fully with the grunge and the wear and the tear, and the signage going, and like the neons, graffitis replaced. Just basically all of like the list we went through just now. It's been applied and it's been put into the game, and it's not as I guess it's not as normally easy and neat as that, but there's a lot of tweaking and tuning along the way. But that's kind of how we went about it on this particular area. A lot of fun to see it come together, and I think the artists and like the team did a great job to take the look and just go full tilt with it.
100%.
And next one, please. And yeah, there's plenty of other things to do. Right, once we got past like that main polishing zone, like we had to go back and you know kind of do the same song and dance on like other districts, same explorations, same levels of consideration. So and even the kind of more so other ways about it. Like if that was all like kind of like the grungy part, then this has to be something different so that we things don't get confusing for people whenever they're navigating. Even like putting in something that was like an older ruined tower on the old Abseil Tower in like the museum district. They're trying to put in like the take for instance like the water tower, not make it just a water tower, but make it something that's more like a trophy shaped, or like the financial district, to make that pop out. Then we had like the old, or like the newer areas with like the cliffside, which I think had homes that were more of like the more suburban living kind of communities up there. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but having to find a different way to solve it. Next slide. Oh,
Oh, wait, really quick.
go ahead.
If we don't mind scooting back. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of like fun lore there in the middle center picture that if you don't mind expanding on. I know Penny the inflatable is one of my favorite parts in the environment, but there's a story between that building and the one across the street that you told me. So I want you to tell us more about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the Penny Pincher Punching Academy is like right next to the Fortune 500 Fight Club. And of course, that's the more banking side of town, the financial district, and the penny pinchers kind of like the little guy gym, or like kind of the average Joe's, sort of a salt of the earth sort of a place to work out. And there's a bit of a rivalry right there, where the little guys don't like the bigger financial gym moving in on their territory, and it doesn't matter how close they get, they're not going to move their gym at all. And they put up this big balloon, um, inflatable thing, that's representing a bull, to combat on the opposite side the golden bear that's been put in to kind of signify the bull and the bear financial, stock market. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of a fun. We tried to really jam high contrast imagery in that section to really make the split. Down the line, almost like the street. Once you cross it, you're in a complete different place.
Yeah, and when I look at the sign, the CH looks familiar. What is maybe that pulled from?
It looks like it's probably Machos Nachos, if I'm seeing it. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
However you got to make your sign, you get it done for your business, right?
That's right. You got to scrap it together, even if it's scrap. It's still a sign.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Next one, please. Yeah, we wanted to push things, kind of everywhere. Once we got different, flavors into different districts, it started to become clear that things were working out pretty well. That parks were starting to feel lush, and we had nice sculptures there, and then we had like the more lit up, artificially lit, bigger skyscrapers, lots of glass in like the Times Square. Then we had like the sewers, and we had financial district sections, and we had like this the shopping strip, and on and on. We had like all like the suburbs, and the different we had like the apartment complexes, and all those had their own like look, kind of feel, but still felt like they were bound together, and they had like the through lines were still correct in terms of like the stylization. But yeah, we really tried to make sure that those all felt like they were unique, and had their own champion look to them. But yeah, it's all part of the same family. Yeah, next one, please. And yeah, great, lots of great storefronts from around the area. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's like the Give and Go, I think, which is a basketball phrase. There's like the biscuit and a basket, which is like a hockey phrase. There's like octopus holdings, which I think it's a wrestling move, I believe. But yeah, trying to get into embracing some of these sports, expressions, and putting them into actual store, signage and storefronts to just make the world a lot more lively. And of course, good old machos.
Hmm.
A lot of good fun. But yeah, next one, please. I think this is the final one, which is my favorite. I think out of all of them, it's just like the billboards, as they, always kind of continue to tell stories about the lore in the universe. It's fun to jam with Lars Devor on a lot of these, the creative director, and a lot of other folks that had ideas, and Cop, Ben, on some of these designs to make swap them out and keep them going, and keep things continuing. Developing movie signs, and drinks and consumables, and even like things that never really made it into a consumable, but was more of like an ambient feeling thing, like the goon at the museum district. But yeah, some of them were cool in ways that they were just ideas, and then eventually they became consumables, like the nacho bucket. I don't believe that was originally on the list, and that eventually became something that was you could actually use in the game. So, but yeah, that is me. Thanks a lot for going down memory lane here with me.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, Steven, and Ben. This is a really cool presentation. Before we move on to the gameplay session, I'd like to ask, do any of you three have a shout out you'd like to make before we move on?
And you want to go first? I don't know if you have a shout out queued up.
No, I didn't even
I
think
ambushed you all.
I will, so I'm going to shout out someone random. So there's one of my son's friends said his cousin said Rumbleverse was the greatest game ever made. So if you're Andrew Mitchell's cousin, shout out to you for telling me that, because it
There
made
you
me
go.
feel
Shout out to
good.
that famous friend. Steven.
Shout out, obviously, the whole character team, everyone involved in the whole process in making the character and the customization system come to life. Again, it's been a highlight, and it's the last few years it has been so much fun to get to work and jam on ideas with all of them. So shout out to all of them. And then shout out to a handful of fans have reached out to members of the character team since Rumbleverse have launched, specifically calling out the way they felt seen by the characters and the body types in Rumbleverse.
Yeah.
That it made them feel represented in a way that other games hadn't. That helped make all the sweat, sweat and tears of making the system work feel worth it. So shout out to those fans for letting it be known that you enjoyed our work.
100%. Yeah, thanks, fans. And then on to Jason.
Shout out from my side to obviously the great teams at Iron Galaxy for pushing through and making this game something special. Thanks to the fans for being with us on this ride and embracing the game, and thanks for sticking with us on this one. And also thanks to my daughter for playing duos with me and rocking it out. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going to move on to our gameplay session. Today's going to be a little different. We are not doing quads. We're going to go to playground mode, and Jason's just going to give us a little walking tour through Grapital City, check out some sites, maybe some details we may not always see as we, launch into Grapital City. Hopefully we can catch Ben on his way back. I know I think his computer or something crashed, but hopefully we catch him back. But we're going to head in playground mode. Before we go to playground mode, though, as you all know, max lobby is 40. Since we're only doing one instance, I want to kindly request, and please be sharing here, after you do like a little bit of the tour, maybe hop out of the server so you can share the experience with others, because I think everyone, that hopefully wants to be a part of this, give them their shot. So I'll try to point out different moments where we can maybe hop out of the server so we can share. Appreciate your understanding and kindness there. Let's go ahead and scoot on over to playground mode. Cool. And our code here is going to be 219702. One more time, 219702, heading to playground mode. I'm going to highly recommend, because I know some folks are going to want to do some big vicious blasts or something. You leave the combat flag on. Yeah, I mean, unless you want to disrupt a little bit, but please don't disrupt the tour, because we want to look at all the details that we're appreciating here. And then, yeah, if you're open to just watching from the chat, feel free to leave those spots open. And all right, gotta remember where we're starting off again.
Hot dog. You better start with the hot dog.
Right.
Is there any question where you're starting?
One more time for anyone trying to file in 219702 for our invite code. I think I might grab a couple stamina drinks and some pods. Stay efficient here. And actually, we're gonna be led by Jason for the environment part. Hi everyone. Nice to see you all. And definitely stock up on the things that'll make you move fast. Gotta go fast. Not too fast though.
Want to answer questions that pop up in the chat?
Yeah, definitely.
Segment.
I saw I saw a silly question earlier. Were any of the body types based on Dave Lang?
No comment there.
Alright, there's our answer. Hey everyone, looking so great. Oh, are we a worm party all the way to our destination? I love it. Oh yeah, maybe take some starfish. Those are pretty efficient for traversal. Okay, we're all stocking up. Something I started taking advantage of recently. If you hold the interact button, it auto-consumes that item.
That's pretty handy.
I learned about it a long time ago. I forgot, but then I was reminded like a week or two ago. And now I'm using that mechanic. Shout out to whoever put that in the game. It makes my fingers that get tired after a long play session more comfortable.
I think Dave Lang
We all
is in the
set?
chat right now, so I think if anybody has questions for Dave Lang, now is your opportunity.
Oh, I see him. First time chat, Joseph Jabroni. Possibly a reference on one of our street names. But everyone, follow me when you can. Feel free to look at the chat. We are heading to the Dog's Bowl. Or the TKO restaurant, right?
I think you're right.
Here we are, TKO restaurant. Let's all meet up here. Hey, what's up? I'm gonna guess this is Log. Log, I love your fan art. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Look at all these good-looking Rumblers. And then we filled the full lobby. Got our 40 players. I almost said farty. Oopsies. That's actually kind of comedic too, so. Alright, let's chill out here. Make sure everyone is here for the walking tour. Do we have our
I'm
guests?
with you.
Oh, you're here, Jason? I can't see. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's good.
Alrighty. So Jason is giving us the tour. I'm going to pass it to him.
Yeah, I'll just stick with you. Yes, I think this is the same space we were looking at earlier in the slides, so you can kind of see all the details of the cracks and the, like the water spills and nice little extras put into this. I can kind of keep going around the corner if we want to.
Yeah, I'm following you.
Cool. All right. Yeah, so we're under the tracks and lots of businesses you can see that we've put into the spaces. I think the old Jock Hawk here is a gently used secondhand sports equipment store, if I'm remembering correctly.
The Jock Hawk. Wait.
The Jock
I'm not looking
Hawk.
in the right place.
I'm right
We're
over
all
here.
On the train?
Right here. I'm actually below it.
Oh, below it.
Yeah.
Jump it down.
Yes, sir. You see?
Oh, I see. Jock Hawk
Yep.
Pawn Shop.
That's it.
We pay for gently used items.
Yes, we do.
Cool.
Yeah, and these are some of more of those boarded up. I guess some of them are actually active still, but some of these dojos down below. Got somewhere around here. It's Jim Buckler's Hockey Fighting Academy. That one's for Chad. I'm sure he would appreciate that one.
I'm having trouble following you. Where'd you go next?
It's
Oh, I
pretty-
see. I see.
I'm jumping.
Okay. Hopefully I don't lose you.
It's all good.
Keep
I'll just
holding
keep,
that starfish so I can see you.
I'll keep jumping around.
Alright, I see you.
Yeah. I think this is one of the second squats we put in to the World Bend. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think the first one was the one up by the strip mall. And that was
Yeah.
the second one.
Definitely. But we can kind of keep making our way down here. If we want to.
lost you again. Oh, I see.
I'm over here. Yeah. Keep
I need
it going.
that team UI UX glow now
Need
that I'm
it.
trying to follow you.
Yeah,
Shout out
got
UI UX.
tasty mousses here.
Little mooses blender.
Little mousses vendor. Yeah, those were cool. We did like a bigger facade, but also did some of like these little mobile ones, which worked out pretty nicely.
Remember with the cars, the shape of the cars? Shortly after we started making them, the U.S. Postal Service released their new design for the Postal Service truck, and it looked a lot like some Rumbleverse cars.
Kind of crunchy.
Inspired by Rumbleverse.
Yeah, we had a Postal Service mole on the inside.
Yeah. So apparently, a little lore on these porta potties. I think when you're done using it, you open the door and the bell rings, which means it's ready to go for the next person.
Emptying out some waste.
I suppose. I guess everything is a bell in this world. But yeah, let's keep on going. Let's keep on making our way down to the dojos. This is what we call the dueling dojos, with the penny pinchers versus the fight club over here. It kind of gives that feeling we were talking about. One's like pretty ritzy, and the other one's more of a more barely getting by, I suppose. We've got that mass blasters over here, factory, getting just pumping all that goodness into the sky. Getting
I like how there's like a very blatant stock market like numbers looking like this is the place where money is probably made, and then you see the broken down like this is where we hope to make money.
Exactly. Yeah, I always loved like the ticker on that entryway.
Yeah. I had no clue Mass Blasters till this week was our pod production place.
Yep.
So thank you for producing so much protein, Mass Blasters.
They really had a hard job ahead of them. I'm glad they were able to stay on track.
Yeah, I think naturally a lot of rumblers probably just this is a nice little roundup on this crate. But naturally, I imagine a lot of rumblers are on the keto diet.
Yep. I think so. Cool. Shall we go keep on going towards the main street?
Sure.
Towards
and then I like maybe this is a checkpoint. If folks in the lobby are open to maybe exiting and sharing the space in the lobby, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you so much for hanging out with us so far in the stream, and hopefully you're enjoying the show. Alright. Okay, I caught you. Alright, I'm seeing the numbers drop. I really appreciate that.
Nice.
Much respect, folks. Thank you. And more folks are filing in. Cool.
Excellent.
Where did you head next?
I'm heading over by the HQ, the Squats HQ.
Squats HQ, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got the corporate Squats building all set up over here. I think there's a similar approach to this over in Times Square itself. But yeah, let's keep on going.
Hey, don't throw stop signs. Or maybe Jason, throw on that combat flag. When you get a chance.
Yeah, sure. Let's keep on rolling.
And this is kind of that glimpse of that area that Sam concepted for us.
Yeah, the big, wide, expansive one. Definitely.
Oh, look at that! Someone gave you some nachos.
Appreciate that.
You should walk up to the arcade and show them the interiors.
Oh yeah. If you look inside certain buildings, I'll let Jason expand on this, but you'll see some interiors.
A few of them are like kind of, well, I guess all of them are faked, but they do require custom setups. If you can take a look at the Anabog arcade, actually have.
Internet's struggling, but I'm with you all. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can kind of see some kind of sort of idea that there is a indeed a arcade inside,
Mhm.
which works pretty nicely.
It's cool.
What,
There's
what
like a few.
games would you say Rumblers play?
Whoa.
This
Probably
doesn't
a lot
have
of-
to be a lore. This is just like a prediction from the three of you. What games do you think they would play?
Animal Crossing probably. But yes, they're all into customization.
I feel like the Rumble is probably their chance to you know, maybe take a break from fighting, take a chill and relax. Maybe some fishing games. I know people that like to chill love fishing games. So
It's probably like that arm wrestling game from like the 1980s, where it was actually like a physical arm. I would imagine that would be in there somewhere. But yeah,
very cool. Yeah, look at that interior.
let's keep
There's,
on.
There's some apartments in the game as you climb on the sides of buildings.
Mhm.
You can see posters in the wall of some of the original concept art that we had in that presentation. Some of the characters and everything. You can see them in those apartments.
Yeah, so actually I see a question in the chat. Were the interiors some texture technique, or are they actually 3D models? Or what? How did we approach those? I guess.
They were textures kind of applied to a box that would kind of give the impression of a room, and it would be sort of like, imagine it's like an offset for the camera. So it moves with, it tracks with the camera to give the effect that it's a 3D space. You know, at some point it has its own limitations, but generally it works fairly well for situations like this.
Where did you go next? I lost you.
I'm over by the brass knuckle. It's towards the end of the street, across from like the big GB Gut Brothers
Oh, I see.
vendor.
Across from
Yeah,
Brothers.
yeah.
The big ghost.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, lots of fun lore for sure in this area. You got the big shot. And
The fighty tighties.
think
The
the mul-
optimal underwear that I'm sure all rumblers wear.
Fighty tighties for sure is important.
Aggressively snug. Confrontational comfort.
Never leave home without
I
it.
don't know if I've read that small text yet.
Yeah. I think that cinema is the multiplex, something, or the suplex. I can't remember exactly. But shall we go up the ABS tower?
Yes, let's do it. And
Take
pass
a look
by
at
a
this.
Jacked Colo ABS News Blast.
Take a look at the
Uh,
city.
Yeah, where Skip Legerday works, right?
That's right. Skip is up there.
Somewhere. Maybe we have to look at the interior, see if you can spot anything.
Absolutely.
I saw a comment in the chat. Somebody asked earlier who voices Skip Legerday.
Yeah, the voice actor for Skip Legerday is Dave Fenoy. Amazing dude.
My favorite performance of his is obviously Skip Legerday, but second favorite is when he played Lee in the Walking Dead games.
Right, yeah.
That guy's awesome.
Yeah. All right, and I think unless there's any lasting comments from Jason, this is probably where we're gonna conclude our tour, right?
This is probably it. Yeah. I don't know if we want to do a shot from this angle, but it'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Let's see. Everyone, actually, if you all can scoot back a little bit from the edge, so we can all try to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So scoot back this way, where I'm at, because if you're at the edge, it'll be hard to fit everyone. Yeah. And we have some folks up front.
Does that work?
Oh, you know what? Some folks want to jump right here on these platforms in the background. You'll have like that upward angle. And then yeah, later on, you can have whatever kind of favorite picture. I love the amount of people doing arm wave dance.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, but everyone hit some waves, emotes. Try to fit yourself in the screen if you can, and we can look back at this VOD and take some screenshots. Oh, you know what? I gotta press the 0 key so we can get all these nice shots.
Thanks.
All of y'all look beautiful. I would attempt to tell folks to turn their flag off, but I don't trust you all. But yes, I'll try to do a slow pan easily with my right thumb. Let's see if I have the skills for it. Looking good, y'all. Thank you, everyone. Alrighty, and let me look back at my script because I don't want to mess up the next section. That will be the end, or almost the end, of our dev stream today. Thank you so much, everyone, for stopping by. Before we move on, I want to share a non-exhaustive list because I'm sure I'm going to miss someone, and I apologize ahead of time. But a huge bunch of thank yous. So first up, Iron Galaxy, IT, recruiting, HR, ops, Galaxy services. You all keep the dev team and all of Iron Galaxy running each day. Next up, engineering, design, animation, art, UI, UX, world, audio, VFX, Cosmo, production, tech, QA, MTX, DEIA, product development, user research, live ops, community. Of course, Iron Galaxy leadership, Chelsea Blasco, Adam Boys, Dave Lang, and then our game director, Lars Zavor. Everyone, please, in the chat, say thank you to all the folks at Iron Galaxy that make this game possible. Next up, the rest of my thank yous. Epic Games Publishing, our voice cast, Dave Fenoy as Skip Legerday, and then our characters, Afi Ekulona, I'm sorry if I mispronounce any of these names, Damian Haas, John Lepeau, Layla Berzins, Lauren Mayfield, Nathan Hedrick, one of our writers, Jordan Morris, original music by Yusu Kim, our partners, Farbridge, Pingle, Blindlight, Dave and Dave Studios, Game Vision, Hexany Audio, OF3D, Streamline Studios, Games and Media Group, Brian Rouleau Inc., Testronic, Huiz, Interactive Entertainment Law Group, Keyword Studios. Our Reddit mods, Tupperware, Mean Saltine, and Mr. Woodhouse. Our Discord mods, you all know who you are. Thank you so much. And last but not certainly least, you all, the Rumbleverse community. Thanks for playing, and please keep in touch with Iron Galaxy. Consider logging in, excuse me, and playing a match directly after this stream. You will see a bunch of IGS names, and we'll appreciate that. And thank you. And lastly, we have a final video for you all. Please enjoy.
Is this thing on? Yeah, I think it is. Hey there, Rumble fans. We interrupt this regularly scheduled rumbling for a special announcement. This is Skip Legerday, and on behalf of myself and the entire ABS family, I'm here to thank the countless Rumblers whose triumphs and tribulations have made this city what it is. While Grapital City and Low Key are now off limits, the memory of everyone's aerodynamic elbow drops will not soon be forgotten. Now, if you'll excuse me, ABS is throwing me a farewell party at Squats downtown. All you can eat spicy boneless poppers. See you there. And how about one more body slam for old time's sake? Ooh, that kind of hurts. Swelling up already. Oh, that's gonna leave a bruise. Well, on to Squats Chicken. This is Skip Legerday, proudly reporting for Grapital City's ABS. This is gonna be a day to remember. It's the Rumble. It's the see the beautiful city from one side of the boat and the open sea on the other. I don't know about you, but that wild blue horizon calls to me sometimes. But I can't go. There's too much action and excitement right here at home. It's the Rumble. This is Skip Leggard, proudly reporting for Grapital City's ABS. This is gonna be a day to remember. It's the Rumble. 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 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, go, go! It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. You can see the beautiful city from one side of the boat and the open sea on the other. I don't know about you, but that wild blue horizon calls to me sometimes. But I can't go. There's too much action and excitement right here at home. It's the Rumble. This is Skip Leggard, proudly reporting for Grapital City's ABS. This is gonna be a day to remember. It's the Rumble. 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 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, go, go! It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble. You can see the beautiful city from one side of the boat and the open sea on the other. I don't know about you, but that wild blue horizon calls to me sometimes. But can't go. There's too much action and excitement right here at home.